everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Salvation Foundation YouTube channel. I'm here with a dear friend of mine, Averie, and today we're going to be discussing porn and its relation to the sex trafficking industry, how the two industries really feed off of one another, and each of them promote the activities in the other industry. So I know a lot of people are still trying to find information and increase their knowledge about what sex trafficking is, the different facets of sex trafficking, what pulls together and ties together to make up the world of sex trafficking, what feeds it, what encourages traffickers to continue trafficking, which is the revenue and the large amounts that come from it. So I brought Averie here. I'm going to allow Averie to give herself a quick intro so that you understand a little bit more of her background and why she's so knowledgeable in this field.
Hi, thank you. So my name's Averie. I'm a data analyst for a lot of different fields and a wide array of subject matters. But I have a huge passion for, fighting for women and children, and, I'm really involved in the anti-porn movement, involved with a few different organizations and pages to help spread awareness as to how pornography fuels the demand for human trafficking. So I'm really happy to be here and to discuss this subject.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you gathering this content, and you and I have talked quite extensively about sex trafficking, and as it relates to the work I do with the foundation. But, it's just another, and I've gone over information as to the different things that feed sex trafficking, the umbrella of it, and then the different types of trafficking that fall underneath that. And porn in so many ways is just another one of those different levels that makes up the enterprise of sex trafficking.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I would love to go over some of the information that was compiled and touch on some of these statistics that you were able to pull together. And, honestly, there's so much to be said about the porn industry, what porn is, the nature of porn, the extent of the porn that's available, the access in which porn is available to children and people of all ages. And ultimately, I want to do a high-level overview today, and we'll dive down into some of the deeper discussions that go a little bit further into different parts of what we're about to talk about today. But ultimately, I just want to give everyone a clear overview of statistics, the psychology of it, why it's harmful, and how it relates directly to trafficking. So I'll just go over some of them, and feel free to jump in at any time. But there are over 68 million daily searches for pornography in the United States, which, is really hard to fathom. It's 25% of all daily searches in the U.S. Pornhub alone receives over 1.68 million visits per hour. Globally, the word teen, is the most searched term. Total searches for teen-related porn reached an estimated 500,000 daily. So that in itself is so scary because, you talk about porn, there are people that feel a certain way about it. There are people that love it. There are people that hate it. There are people that don't know a lot about it. There are people that just are curious about it. Yeah. I think in all circumstances, or 99.9% of circumstances, it's very unrealistic. It's very toxic to a person individually, but then also in a relationship.
Relationships, it causes a lot of harm. I mean, think about your partner, and if you were to look on their history and you find that they're looking up porn, but not just porn, they're looking up something along the lines of teen, of young adult, of stepmother, of child. There's a research that I can't remember off the top of my head, but of fathers finding pornography on their pages and looking up stepdaughters and stepsons, and it's very dehumanizing. I think that's a good word to describe it.
In many ways. Well, and then we'll go into it a little bit further, but the grooming that happens, it's very hard, for people to acknowledge, first off, why they're interested in porn.
Yeah.
What captivated them, what allowed them to be open to it, what has happened either in their lives, what's happening in their relationship, what dynamic they
what
have experienced.
age?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the average age now for someone to start watching porn is 10 years old. Like, girl or boy, that's the average age of people getting into pornography, and it's due to the easy access. I mean, just the other day I looked up something for statistics for this and looked up sex trafficking and porn, and the first 4 things that popped up were actual pornography videos titled sex trafficking. And so you try to look up sources to combat this, but the first few things that pop up are actual
promoting
pornography. It's really easy, and I mean, so many kids have social media now and mobile devices that it's right in their hands.
Well, and you and I both know that the majority of the child sexual abuse solicitation is happening on Facebook, is the number one. Instagram, Snapchat is the third, I believe, and then it trickles down into apps like TikTok, and there's an entire list of them, and we'll go over those a little bit later as well. But moving on, teenagers actually use porn and those types of videos to gather their own information and knowledge about what sex is. So imagine, and I find it so disturbing that the porn that's out there, it's not what it used to be 30, 40 years ago, where, it was very non-invasive and almost like soft porn.
Yeah.
There are so many depths of evil when it comes to porn as well. There are abuses and tortures. There are rapes that you don't even know that you're witnessing as rapes. There are people that didn't consent to being filmed, but they were either coerced or forced into these situations, and they were filmed, whether it was to their knowledge or not. They didn't have a decision. They didn't have the authority to say no. Not only do I not want to have sex with these strangers, but I also don't want to be filmed doing it.
Yeah.
And then for it to be sold later on, or just uploaded to porn websites like Pornhub, who doesn't even
go regulate.
Through. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't look at any of the content that's being uploaded. It's just uploaded, and they've actually admitted that in court cases before involving minors that had rapes that were put up on Pornhub and not taken down for months and months and months after
so long,
multiple requests.
Yeah, and the problem is with teenagers getting their information of how their sexuality should be via porn, it creates now this warped perception of what sex is, and it creates a porn-driven culture. And there's studies showcasing that young boys who are introduced to porn, it's an addiction in a sense. So in order to get more and more aroused, they have to watch more and more hardcore porn.
Right.
But not only does that transcribe into how they see sex, it transcribes into how they act out sex and sexual relations with their partners. And that's why you see so many women and relationships now kind of uplift BDSM or like hardcore sex and very violent type sex, because it's being fueled by pornography. They're watching this, they're learning it, and they're like, well, this is what this person likes on camera. And young girls and women are now engaging with porn, and they think, well, that's sexy to men, so that's how I should act, and that's how I should perform sexual acts.
It's ultimately grooming on a very wide scale.
Yeah,
I mean, you have millions upon millions of people that are logging in and watching these videos. And where I was going with the nature of these videos, what I know is out there, plus what I know is integrated with child sexual abuse material, and the extreme nature of torture that has escalated with even child sexual abuse material, it's being implemented in porn as well. So not only are you grooming and conditioning to need to have more violent and abusive, invasive content, but then you're also fueling that for children too, because as the violence increases, the age decreases. So that yearning for material with teenagers is now not quite enough. So now the age of these children is getting younger and younger and younger, where, I've even mentioned before in a previous podcast, you have chat rooms live streaming torture of children being raped, and it's not just about the sex anymore. It's about how extreme the torture is. And there are people that are rating the videos and rating this chat room, and the popularity of these rooms is based on those ratings. So they have to keep increasing the levels of violence and torture for the ratings to get higher. Yeah. So you literally have people typing, watching live, commenting, where's more torture? That child isn't screaming loud enough. They're introducing... it's hard to hear, but you're obviously on my page and watching my videos for a reason, so I'll just put it out there. But they torture children with devices, and there are things, fire, ropes for tying them up. They're tying them up in extremely uncomfortable, hurtful, compromising positions. They use different torture devices, the things that they see in movies that they would like you to believe aren't real because they're in movies. It's 100% real. Yeah. So knives, different types of knives, razor blades, needles, and they do these things while they're raping these children. So they'll stick needles in a child's body, and they'll be raping a child on film while other people are tuning in to find sexual gratification and pleasure. Like it's so hard to fathom and wrap your mind around. But I'm telling you, it's real, and this is what's happening. Yeah. So
pornography is
it's the gateway. It's the door into the deepest levels of evil and darkness you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, pornography
and then bestiality, not to cut you off. But then you talk about bestiality, and these children are being raped by people, not just people dressed up as animals with big, huge animal heads on and masks and costumes, but actual animals. And then the kids are being forced to perform sex acts with one another on video for sale and uploading on these sites. So
it's horrendous. And pornography, like you said, it's the gateway, and it's marketing, it's trafficking, it's sex trafficking, human trafficking. It's their tool for marketing. How they gauge and look at porn sites, whatever's being demanded, that's what they're going to put out.
Exactly.
And that, simple as it is, that's what it is. It's a marketing scheme.
Well, and then given the nature of everything that's going on in our world right now, we're trying to mitigate and minimize the evil and the darkness. And you have new porn sites popping up all the time. You have new videos, millions of new videos being uploaded year after year after year. You look at the nature of even the titles of some of these videos and what is available. There are people that tune in because there are different types of evils being committed. So there are different races that are mentioned by their race so that people can take out their racial aggressions and hatred via porn. They actually recreate racial porn, whether it's a Caucasian female being raped and tortured, or it's an African American female being raped and tortured, or it's an Asian, whatever it is, they have it out there for you. There are so many, I can't even think of them right now, but that's just one example. Different types of hate crimes or hatred, aggression as it relates to sex. Just a few more statistics. Every 39 minutes, a new porn film is created in the United States. So during the time that we're talking right now, a new one will be created.
And I think people don't realize that. I think there's the misconception that, it's
recycled.
Yeah, it's recycled, or it's like how a film is produced. It takes a little bit. It's a production. Like, you hire your actors and actresses, but that's not how it is. When there's a high demand, they're going to put out as much content as they can.
By whatever means possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Recruiting, grooming, forcing. So many of these producers will go and find girls, runaway girls that are in the social care system, foster care. They prey on vulnerable children, and it's so much of the time. And they will promise a lavish lifestyle, or they will promise them to get paid, or they offer them drugs if they're currently homeless right now, or they've already run away and they've already gotten themselves into some trouble with drugs and the law. Mm-hmm. They'll offer them something that seems so enticing that it'll get them out of their current situation, or that'll make their lives better. And I have actually read case studies where there was a trafficker that groomed a girl for over 2 years before finally tricking her and isolating her into a position where he then forced her to have sex for money and would beat her daily so that she would comply. Mm-hmm. Food was promised as a reward, so basically she had to perform to survive. So there's so many circumstances of that. It's not what the general public thinks it to be, that these women chose these lifestyles.
Consenting. And I think it's important to put an emphasis on, if it's a survival mode, like you're getting food, that's not consenting. If you're getting paid to do something in order to survive, that's not a true consent of saying, right. Yes, that's you going into survival mode, doing anything you can to survive and, overcome the obstacles in your life.
Absolutely. 70% of all internet porn traffic occurs during the workday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that'll tell you what people are typically spending their time on during the time that they're supposed to be working. The porn industry, just to give you guys an idea of how much money the porn industry pulls in, the porn industry makes more money than the National Football League, the National Basketball Association, and Major League Baseball combined, and more than NBC, CBS, and ABC combined. Now, this was a statistic that was gathered back in 2006. So you can imagine, what were we looking at? What was that statistic? 774% increase in the number of child sexual abuse images and videos reviewed through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's Victim Identification Program. So you can imagine how many of those images and videos are being uploaded onto porn sites because of the nature of the content. Mm-hmm. And it absolutely does happen. And there are so many people that like to argue that, no, I absolutely watch porn with two willing adults, and it's only a male and a female, and they're absolutely of adult age. Well, that's a misconception that a lot of people might want to think is true, but like we mentioned, the percentages of women that are coerced into this type of activity is so high. The likelihood of you, if you are a porn watcher on a normal basis, mm-hmm. the likelihood of you watching a rape on camera is very high. So know that going in. Are you okay with that? Can you sleep with that at night, knowing that maybe you didn't know that you watched porn and you actually watched a live rape?
Yeah, I mean, knowing that these porn sites have admitted that they don't regulate these videos, you as the viewer have absolutely no idea what you're watching. You have no idea who the age is. I mean, many girls that are minors can very well look with a bit of makeup a lot older than what they are. So mm-hmm. you truly have no idea what you're watching. Even amateur porn, they call it ethical porn. You have no idea. It's just a brand of porn, and you still don't know if those women were forced or not.
Right. Dr. Jeffrey Satinovet says modern science allows us to understand that the underlying nature of an addiction to pornography is chemically nearly identical to a heroin addiction. And that is because, there's so much to be said about the psychology of porn and what it actually does in your brain. The disassociation from reality, the then comparison to what reality really is. You're so desensitized that normal, healthy sexual activity with a partner is deemed unfit because it doesn't even compare to what's depicted on the screen, which is by no means the norm or healthy or promoting what sex was actually intended for between a willing couple. So, and the fact that that's what it does to your brain psychologically is it creates a chemical component that matches a heroin addiction. So you understand how unlikely it is for a heroin addict to break away from their addiction to heroin. You can imagine somebody that's watching porn that's getting that same high chemically. It's no different. Your body doesn't process that any differently. It's the same chemical components that are making up that addiction. So whether it's a substance or whether it's on a screen, it's the exact same thing because in your brain it produces the same hormones, the same physiological responses, but it's completely removed from reality. So the dangers of that and introducing that into what someone would like to be a healthy relationship, it is almost never, ever, ever, ever going to turn out okay.
No, and I think an issue with how it affects you psychology is like not even just very personal relationships, but it's been proven that it warps the perception of how men view women.
Absolutely.
And they view women now not as human beings, but as sexual objects. And it's incredibly dehumanizing, whether it is conscious or it's subconscious thinking. It's been proven by multiple studies that men who are just indulged and addicted to porn, it really does lower their view of how women are, and they view them as inferior. They view them as nothing but sexual gratification for themselves.
Another doctor discusses just that, how prolonged exposure to pornography results in both a loss of respect for female sexual anatomy and then the inhibition of men in the expression of aggression against women. Dr. James B. Weaver. There's really nothing in the long term that is positive from the effects of watching pornography. It destroys the psychology of men and women individually, and then just wreaks havoc later on down the line. You start talking about insecurities that surface, and just toxic behaviors, not even in a sexually intimate environment, but then behaviors in the relationship in general. And then there's a darkness to it, so there's a secrecy component, and then there comes honesty and integrity and loyalty and all of those attributes that are so important to make up a healthy sexually intimate relationship are discounted because of what's being shown. So there's much to be considered and much more to be said, but we'll keep going through this. I know we're trying to cover a lot of information, but like we had mentioned, the increase of 774% of child sexual abuse images and videos that NECMEC has identified. Children 10 years and younger account for 22% of all online obscene content consumption in the 18 years old and under category. 10 years and younger account for almost a quarter of all of that content. Which is even more disturbing, especially given the work that I do and knowing how much of this content circulates out there. It's really hard to talk about it sometimes, but the child sexual exploitation material is the fastest growing material in the world as far as online businesses. Even it's hard to even consider it an online business, but
it's hard to put that into words.
It is. But I've talked about that before as well. this is a business, and this is happening because there's a demand, which means there's money to be made. $150 billion industry is what human trafficking is. And those numbers, just like all the other numbers, aren't even current or up to date. So you can imagine, I believe that was 2018 or 2019
Right around there.
is when those numbers were calculated. And that doesn't account for all of 2019 to current. And then that also doesn't account for the 700% increase since COVID. So you can only imagine how much is being funneled.
Secretly, too. I mean,
Yes,
you don't know how much money is just secretly under. I mean, it's estimated, too, that child pornography is a $3 billion industry. And that was a statistic that came from the White House in 2018, I believe. But, again, it probably is vastly a lot more than $3 billion.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Again, by some estimates, 4.5 million people are trapped or forced into sexual exploitation globally. Again, that number was from 2018. So in 9 different countries, according to another anti-trafficking nonprofit, 49% of sexually exploited women said that pornography was made of them while they were being sold for sex. So during the time that they were being trafficked by a trafficker for sex, 50% were filmed. That just goes to prove everything we just said.
Yeah.
Again, just touching on what we said, last year there were 42 billion visits to popular porn sites. If you contributed even one or a substantial amount of the 42 billion visits to one of the world's most popular free porn sites in 2019, you probably don't understand the likelihood that you might be getting aroused by images of a performer who did not appear on film under their own free will. In one survey, 63% of underage sex trafficking victims said they had been advertised or sold online. And that was a statistic from Thorn. So just to give you an idea, and just so you know, most traffickers have multiple different women and children that they traffic. Some dozens and dozens are under their
umbrella.
Control.
Yeah, control.
In the Netherlands, investigators were able to calculate the profit generated by 2 sex traffickers from a number of victims. One trafficker earned $18,148 per month from 4 victims, which is a total of $127,036. While the second trafficker earned $295,786 in the 14 months that only 3 women were sexually exploited. So 14 months, 3 women, almost $300,000. 3 women, $300,000. And that's on the low end of things, because I've heard statistics that are much higher, but this is just one example.
Yeah.
It's anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 a year per body. So most of the stories that I hear of children being trafficked, it's dozens of children being transported in vans each time they're transported. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3 to 5 dozen kids in multiple different vans. Anywhere between 1 and 5 vans is the average story that I'm hearing from adults that were trafficked as children that come in my office and share these stories with me. That equates to over millions of dollars each year for the head trafficker. And as I understand it, and as I know it to be true, the way that these are run is it's like a pyramid operation. You have the main person that's controlling it at the very, very top. And it's like any other business structure. You have the person at the top, and then they have their downlines of different people in different locations trafficking hundreds and thousands of children. So when we're talking about, 800,000 children go missing every year, not only is that number not accurate either, but look at the millions and billions that it's very possible. All of these numbers are extremely reasonable and very conservative when you're talking about an illicit enterprise. So, you know, and it goes down, it starts at the top, and I've mentioned this before, at the ultra wealthy top.
Yeah.
And then it trickles all the way down into, you know, your you know, upper class, middle class, lower class, and then you go down into, you know, the poverty-stricken cities and towns and communities and countries in the world. It starts up here, and again, another very common misconception. Not only do people still not realize how much happens in the United States, but it's not just third world countries, and it's not just poor or, you know, underprivileged communities and cities, and
it can happen in your own backyard. It can happen anywhere.
It does happen in our own backyard, and it happens in ultra wealthy communities where parents are selling their children and trafficking them in other wealthy communities and to other customers, and it just goes on and on. And, you know, circling all the way back around, because I don't want to get off on another tangent, sex traffickers use pornography in many ways. They force their victims to watch porn to desensitize them, even to train them in sex acts that they will be forced to perform. They also video the victims and then sell and distribute the pornographic films on the internet and other outlets of these children that are having sex with one another after watching a porn. They have to act it out, and then they then take that material and then they sell that, or they upload that on the dark web, or they use that in these chat rooms. This is the type of content that's being confiscated when organizations like mine have the software that tracks down this child sexual abuse material that's filtered on and through the internet. So I could go on and on, but ultimately this is just the beginning of these discussions and what really happens and what takes place. I remember reading about this, you know, a few years ago, when certain legislations were put into place and certain bills were put into place a few years ago, against this fight against trafficking. And I remember reading journal entries and logs that were put in from different organizations, other nonprofits, government agencies, the White House, you know, ones across the globe. They all compiled all of this information into, it was a diary is what they called it. And some of these case studies talked about the extreme abuses that happen in these dark web private chat rooms. And the content was so bad sometimes that I literally had to sit there and just cry because of how sick I felt, because of what I was reading that happens, that was documented in these chat rooms. And it's beyond anything that you're able to see on social media. And I know that a lot of that content is even really very disturbing to stomach, even myself, after I've been conditioned to see this stuff for the last 5-6 years. But I'm saying that because I just need everybody out there to understand that what you're seeing, even on social media, that's being exposed right now is still just the tip of the iceberg. So this battle that we're fighting, this battle that I'm fighting, is so much worse than what you even know it to be based on what you're witnessing on social media and what's being shared. And even that's limited because the fact checkers like to fact check the truth. So
all the time,
and they're censored. They're censoring us and they're shadow banning us. So stay in the fight, stay diligent, keep spreading the information. You guys are doing a great job, and I'm so proud of all of you. Next time, in our upcoming podcasts, we are going to be talking about grooming and what that looks like, because it's a whole entire animal on its own.
Yeah.
Grooming's called grooming for a reason. They groom you. And like I said, it's over sometimes a long period of time. So even the most suspecting adult might not even realize that they're being groomed because they're predators. This is what they do day after day after day. They're experts at it. And so many of these people are actually brilliant people. So they're very calculated. They're very strategic in their approach to groom adults and children. And our children, of course, are most vulnerable because, I mean,
they're the most easily.
The babysitters are electronics so much of the time. And they are extremely vulnerable. And they are unsuspecting because they aren't taught the things that even us as adults, the majority doesn't even realize is happening. So we're going to be talking about grooming, what that looks like, and things to look out for within social media, apps, movies, ads, TV, music, everything, the content that's being pushed out there by the people that are mainly responsible for the child trafficking that's happening right now all across the world. We will talk about TikTok, Snapchat, another site that popped up semi-recently called OnlyFans, and unsuspecting subliminal messaging. So a lot of content, a lot of awesome things I think we'll be sharing with you so that you can protect yourself and then protect your kids and have those uncomfortable conversations with them. Just like I posted on social media today, I posted a bunch of tools on how to have those very uncomfortable conversations with your children, only to protect them. It would do nothing but protect them.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to close off with?
I think the last thing, just to sum it all up, just to be aware of what you're digesting, what your children are digesting, and to kind of always be on guard. And I know that's an uneasy thought, to always be on your toes, but it's a world that we live in right now, and with the culture that we have that's so with the culture that we have right now that's so easily digests pornographic images, songs, and we're just a porn-driven culture, as harsh as that is. It's just so important to be aware and to understand why we're anti-porn and how it fuels one of the worst evils in the world. So this is, I'm really happy you brought me on.
Yeah.
So it's a really important subject matter, I think, because it's, in my opinion, the #1 tool used for marketing for human trafficking, like I said.
Yep, absolutely, and that's why we're discussing it. Anything that relates to trafficking, with extreme focus on child sex trafficking, you guys all know my heart and my drive and my passion to expose it all. So there's more to come, a lot more to come, actually. And then, like always, please, I request that you give us feedback. If there's anything you'd like to know more about, I'm more than willing to have more podcasts focused on frequently asked questions, any concerns that you guys have, if you need clarity on things. As always, please respond in the comment section, and please share this page so that more people can understand sex trafficking and what else goes into it as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, Averie, for being here and providing so much content and support always. And we will be back very soon. Until then, take care and see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.